Hi, my name is Steve Pasella, and I'm an ecologist at EPA's Pacific Coastal Ecology Branch in Newport, Oregon. I'm going to talk to you today about some of our research to understand the impacts of coastal acidification in estuaries of the Pacific Northwest. So what is coastal acidification? You are probably already familiar with the terms climate change and global warming. These terms refer to how human activities are releasing greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, causing our planet to warm and alter climatic patterns. The most important greenhouse gas for climate change is CO2, which mainly comes from our burning of fossil fuels for transportation and energy production. This figure on the left highlights some of the major changes to how CO2 is cycled around our planet because of human activities. While much of the CO2 we emit stays in the atmosphere, about a quarter of the CO2 is absorbed by the ocean. We can measure this increase in CO2 both in the atmosphere and in the oceans. This figure on the right shows the increase in atmospheric CO2 in red since the 1950s. The green line shows the CO2 increase measured in the ocean at the same time. You can see that they are both increasing at about the same rate. So as we continue to burn fossil fuels, this not only will continue to increase the CO2 in the atmosphere, but also in the oceans. When CO2 is absorbed by the ocean, it causes a chemical reaction that decreases the pH of ocean water and results in more acidic ocean waters. This pH decrease is plotted here in blue. This process is what we call ocean acidification, and it is currently taking place on a global scale. In coastal areas, human activities can cause additional acidification of coastal waters. This can be due to runoff of pollution, agricultural activities and urbanization, and wastewater discharges. The sum of the acidification driven by these more local processes, in combination with the acidification driven by global climate change, is what we call coastal acidification. We are studying coastal acidification at our EPA lab because we know that it can be harmful for coastal organisms. Recent studies have shown coastal acidification on our coasts can dissolve the shells of young Dungeness crabs and also cause deformed growth and mortality of juvenile oysters. This is happening right now, and most shellfish growers in our region have said that they are beginning to feel the negative impacts from acidification on their operations. At our lab, we are studying coastal acidification to better understand how water quality along our coasts and in estuaries is changing, where and when these impacts are at their worst, and developing methods to improve our ability to observe these changes in the coastal environment. We partner with local, state, tribal, and national organizations to accomplish this, with a variety of different research techniques. Much of our work is carried out in the field, where we directly sample coastal waters for a variety of chemical analyses important for coastal acidification, including CO2 and nutrient levels. We also deploy autonomous sensors like those pictured here on the right that automatically record CO2, pH, and other indicators of water chemistry every 15 minutes for months at a time. This allows us to build large data sets that can be used to assess seasonal and longer-term changes in acidification levels. We also have state-of-the-art laboratory facilities where we can run experiments to assess the impacts of coastal acidification on native organisms, such as shown here on the bottom left. An example of one of our coastal acidification projects is nearby in Tillamook Bay, Oregon. We have installed autonomous sensors to study the CO2, pH, and oxygen levels of water in the bay for the past 4 years. This allows us to assess how waters in Tillamook Bay have changed due to coastal acidification and what that might mean for native organisms like shellfish and salmon. Pictured here in the photo at the top is a study we have started to assess how well young oysters grow under different environmental conditions, including different levels of acidification. Ultimately, we are conducting this research to help answer two major questions. How are coastal habitats changing with ongoing coastal acidification, and how might native organisms and coastal fisheries be impacted? Helping to answer these questions will allow local stakeholders to make better and more informed decisions as to how to manage our coastal resources in the face of coastal acidification and climate change. Data we are generating right now, some of which is shown in these figures, is going directly to informing these types of management and conservation efforts. If you would like to learn more about what EPA is doing to address ocean and coastal acidification, you can visit these links for more information. You can also reach me at my email address shown here, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thanks very much for your time.